So the 7 steps to become a confident tarot reader is my journey in many ways. Because to be honest, when I started with tarot cards, knowing about them, I was actually told that they were bad by my grandma. We were not allowed to use even regular playing cards because she was afraid of them. The reason being that she had predicted with regular playing cards, which were popular when she was young, some very deadly outcomes, and they came true. So prediction was something that she was very, very afraid of. She saw it as almost what she sometimes called it, the devil's tool. So she was clearly very frightened by the power of it. And once I grew up, I had not really learned much about tarot, but then eventually I learned that one of my good friends was a tarot reader as well. She was an astrologer too. And I was like, oh, but wait a minute, her life is okay. She doesn't seem to be bad, and no bad things seem to be happening. She has a lot of clients. So eventually I also went to her and got some readings, and I realized it's something completely else than what I had been told it is. And it did not scare me at all. In fact, it interested me. And I realized there's so much more to it than what I had been explained when I was young. So eventually, in 2019, began to study tarot myself. And the way it happened was I immediately began with intuitive tarot card reading, which is the method that I'm using also today and that I'm teaching to other people. For me, this is the most freeing way of learning tarot. And I've had multiple tarot teachers from whom I've learned different methods, including Kabbalah. And to be honest, not all tarot readers and teachers will actually read tarot intuitively. But for me, that's the one method where I saw the most growth, the most mindfulness, and the most interest in. So in this picture, you can actually see my mom, who's also into spirituality. So I've always been connected to these sort of things. And in the end, I liked to turn this into a business. That was not something that I planned to do when I first learned cards, but it was more something that came out of it because of having a real passion and being able to help people, which is why you are here as well, right? You simply want to help. So tarot reading is a very different thing than when you are doing simply memorizing tarot card meanings, which I can sometimes call tarot reciting. Tarot reading for me is something where you're literally going into the depths of yourself and being very honest. So first of all, for me, it's a self-reflection tool. And once you have done that job on yourself, then you're able to also understand how to do it for others. And that for me is the intuitive tarot reading experience. It's very easy to put it in words like this, but it's a completely different thing to actually do it yourself. It's something that you practice and train over time and understand how it goes. What are the ins and outs? So first aspect for the steps, the first step for me is intuition. So as you know, we're all intuitive, and some interesting aspect for tarot is that for me, it's the tool, the main tool that allowed me to actually train my intuitive skills. It allowed me to play around with, understanding what my intuition is saying and actually being able to understand myself better. And as I'm saying here, it's not about testing my intuition. It was more about creating this deep, transparent, and truthful relationship with myself. And I did a lot of introspection practice, like going within, understanding myself. I've done it daily for a long time, and I continue to do it in many ways, tarot being one of those ways. So eventually, this actually being intuitive leads us to being quite confident in self because we know who we are. Then the second part, the second step for me is knowledge, to truly to be able to give more to your client, meaning you know some kind of amount, but another person knows their amount. And by showing a different perspective is important, but also the knowledge of tarot, the knowledge of the system that you are reading, the knowledge of the symbols, the understanding of archetypes, being able to interpret, not just recite. So reciting is when you're just taking a book that comes with a tarot card deck and you're literally reading the few sentences. For me, that's literally reciting or, copying somebody's work and citing it, to be honest. But real interpretation is something that you go deeper into. And for that, the knowledge of the tool itself will be very, very helpful. And that eventually actually allows to see deeper meanings into each tarot card. Third step is the practice. This in no way you can skip this step. If you're doing the reciting, you will even do this version. And the reciting for me is anyone who just learns specific tarot card meanings from one book that comes with a deck, or maybe there's a book that you bought, or maybe there's a specific source online that you're following and you always go to those meanings and you have memorized them. But here the practice is that I see as a way to actually be able to intuitively practice yourself. So it's kind of interesting that when you're memorizing and reciting, it gets actually boring over time because you're going to, do the same thing again and again. And it will be quite hard to sometimes connect different tarot card meanings in different questions. It will get quite tricky to understand how to do a big spread and how do some cards relate to each other. I mean, maybe you also memorize those options from somebody who told you how it is. But for me, it's much more open. For me, the interpretations from the intuitive self give much more meanings and a lot more trust in myself that, I can actually be able to give something to somebody. So those who actually do the regular practicing see that by doing it either together with others or on their own, you can start to notice things. Notice how things change over time, especially if you are doing practices like I do in my tarot reading club, or some other people have their own groups. You will start to hear how other people's experiences with the same card are different. And sometimes you might have the same deck and you will still have a completely different meaning to each card. So it's a quite beautiful experience to see it, that everybody can experience the same archetype in a slightly different way, but both of them are real for them at that time. The fourth step for me is the intention behind why you are doing this. Why do you want to help someone? Like, honestly. And if you know your why reasons, you will be able to, first of all, be motivated by it when it gets tough. But second of all, you will also be able to, build upon it. Because even if you don't try to use your why as way to show yourself out there, it will naturally come out. Because something motivates you, and that will naturally come out in some way, right? So in many ways, the intention behind always gets us to the result. So for some people, maybe their intention is something, for example, we went through some experience and you would love to help people not to go through the same experience so intensely as you did. You know how to live through that, and you can actually help those people in some ways, be like a guide, a coach, something, in that process. And then probably your intention is going to be connected to that. And that's very powerful and very deep and very needed, especially for those people, right? So it is quite interesting how having an intention that really resonates with you, that you have defined, will actually help you. Often, though, our intentions are not defined, but they are still there. And then fifth step for me is the professionalism. So if you feel like you have something to give to the world, that is probably your gift, your skill, your ability, something that either comes naturally to you or you have already honed. But what might be missing is, taking very disciplined action. So there is a interesting thing that your action will actually build your confidence when you go through the process. So even if you read tarot cards for others only for fun, which is allowed, you are the expert in that situation. You are probably the only one in that room who knows what it really is. So your actions and words will create their idea of what tarot is. So you do have some responsibility in this area. But note that at any given time, we are all experts at something. So you shared from which country you are, maybe no, not from where you are, but where you are at right now. So if I asked you, what's the best shop in that country or things like that, you're immediately experts on that country. You will be saying, what options are there because you are the one who actually knows most about it because you are there. But the same would come if I would ask you about, for example, your age, how it feels to be this and this age. You would be an expert in that too. So it's interesting how we are unknowingly experts all the time. And I'm not saying you're the best in the whole wide world. No. It's just how this sort of a thing works when we are talking to somebody who doesn't know what one thing is, and then the other knows. This is what I Then the sixth, of course, responsibility is a very important step to being a professional tarot card reader for others, and also to being confident in yourself. So you are the source from which a person will know what tarot is and isn't, as I already explained. But of course, you are responsible to what you are saying to these people, especially because tarot is not a regulated discipline. There are no real big instances that check how you are being either ethical or not in your tarot profession. Yes, there are some associations and other bits, but we don't even get like real proof certificates when we learn tarot. Many people will actually completely learn on their own. Some others will learn through courses from me, for example. But to be honest, the responsibility we take upon ourselves, what information we are giving. If I wanted to, I could give you complete bananas, but my values and my own personal responsibility doesn't allow me to do that. And bananas are great, to be honest. Anyway, so for me, it's also about what sort of boundaries you set, especially when you're doing tarot reading for other people, because that is your responsibility as the person who is leading the activity, who's doing the session, consultation, whatever. People are going to you because they somewhat already trust you, or at least they hope they could, right? So it's up to you to also create the space where they are coming in. And for me, I have to point out that I have often heard that people are really afraid of being wrong, or reading cards wrongly, or predicting something wrong, or predicting something bad, like my grandma's case. But I do not predict future. So for me, I don't have this big, heavy sense of responsibility on top of me, because I know that I am talking about something that is right now. I'm going with a person to understand things that may have been in the past, and I'm looking sometimes at some future opportunities, but I always explain to them that they choose in the now moment whatever they might want to achieve or not. So it's up to them where they go. I don't particularly think that tarot is more powerful than us humans. I think us humans made the tarot. And if you look at history, that is true. So, I'm confident because I know what I'm responsible for. I have clear boundaries and clear goals set, clear intentions, and all of it. So, seventh step, and we are there. We're there. Is the giving and receiving. This is a lesson you would also learn when you're going through tarot cards, because there is literally one card that always reminds you of this lesson very, very strongly. But actually many of them do, but this is very strong. So the balance of the concept of what you give and what you receive is the sweet spot for any tarot reading, but also any sort of consultation, any sort of session, and all that, in my opinion. Creating events, giving, all that. So for me, I make sure that my lifestyle and the way I go into any activity is that I am feeling good first. And then I am able to give to somebody something, right? Like if I came here in a moment when I would be ill, I would not be able to give to you even. So I choose to, do it accordingly when I am able to do it. So my logic about what I want to receive is money, but for some people it can be something else. You can always have a barter system as well for your tarot readings. That's an option. But for me, it's important that you know that when you are giving something to somebody, that you also are open and willing, and even you set the boundaries to what you want to receive. Okay. So some people will, of course, exchange their things, but in some other cases, it will go through money. And for example, I like to choose that. So how you do your self-care is up to you, but I can say that you need to make sure that you are good to feel confident. And that is a no-brainer, right? Easy. Good. We have gone through this powerful experience, and I wanted to share this as well because I know that this is the road to being a Tarot Pro. As I mentioned to you already, I definitely know that this is an industry where we don't really have regulations. So confidence is something that we need for ourselves, whilst responsible honesty is what we are going to be able to give to our clients. And one of the biggest things that I try to make sure that you can experience is when you're going into my courses, and especially now I'm going to have a Tarot Pro course, is to really learn how to get confident through the practice, through all the beautiful things. And sadly, I don't have the poster showing here like it was supposed to be here. But on 17th of September, I will begin the Tarot Pro mentorship for maximum 6 people. So it's a small group where I really make sure that everybody can train very powerfully, almost on one-on-one basis with me. So you get to really go and understand every aspect of tarot reading before you go out there and announce your own new tarot offers. We actually even create offers together for you to begin with. So if you really want to understand the marketing part of tarot, and if you want to understand the business part of things, and if you want to actually understand symbols in depth and other things, and also the intuitive tarot reading method, this is the course for you. So if you are interested in that, reach out to me and we will have a deeper conversation and I will give you more information about this mentorship. Okay, now let's go into the Q&A. I'm excited. So we had multiple questions that were sent in, as you can see. And let me see who is here so that I can answer to those who are here. Good, so we have... Gigi, can you please say what is your actual name so that I know if you sent in questions or not? Because I don't know. I have no idea otherwise. Gabriela. Okay, good. Thank you. Good, good, good. Also, if you already wrote down some questions whilst I did the presentation, you can actually post them now in the chat. And good, good, good. Yes. Okay, let me see. So we don't have maybe the first person, second as well, third, new. Dignora. Okay, so I get to respond to you, Dignora, to the 4th question. How does someone get started to do readings outside family or friends? When is the right timing? Ooh. So, for me, from my experience, I can say that it is partially about how confident you feel, but of course the first time when you will do a reading for somebody that you're not related to, you will still get very, like a bit of stress, but excited stress probably, depending on what type of a person you are. If you are somebody who really 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 cares, maybe it would really feel quite strong. But it probably is for me, like, I notice in myself the moment when I'm ready to go there, and at least that's how it happened in the past, was when I was giving so much to the people close to me that they were like, oh my god, stop it. Like, I have to have boundaries with the people, right? It's not like everybody wants my advice all the time. Yes, right. It's funny, but it's true. I really notice it myself. And I know that when I'm starting to give too much advice to people close to me, I'm like, oh, I need to stop, first of all, to give it to them because they're not asking. But the second part is that I know that I am able to give it and it's coming out naturally. So that means that it is time to, offer it to the world. So that is beautiful. That is a beautiful moment to allow yourself to, share further and simply offer it. And they can say, yes, I want it, or I don't want it, right? And that's the beauty with having a client. They are coming to you because they want to receive. Your family members, they are just there, right? And what they usually need to receive and want is your, compassion, your care, and your presence. So they're not necessarily advice. If they want advice, they will probably say, okay, can you advise me? So I like to wait for somebody who's close to me now to say if they want a tarot reading. And if they say, yes, please, can you do a tarot reading? Then I'll be like, okay, now I can consider it. Yes, thank you. I'm happy to answer things like this. Okay, next. We have Ninke. Sorry, I might have butchered the word. So Nini, I would like to know more about I think you meant patterns, right? You can make with the cards and the interpretation. Oof, I love the question, but at the same time, I will not be able to explain it all because there are so many patterns that are connected. Like, I would really need to use a tarot card deck and literally put cards together, but then they can come in so many forms. I don't remember the precise number, but somebody had counted how many different variations a tarot card deck can give. But it always depends on how many cards you pull. So like, if with for example, if somebody is into doing how do you say these gaming patterns, or for example, I'm doing Sudoku quite regularly. There are amount of combinations, how many there could be, right, from a specific amount of number of numbers. So Sudoku is what, quite a lot of numbers, but tarot is a lot more. So 78 cards, then times so many variations. I think the number was one of those names that we don't even usually use. So it's not billions, it's billions of billions, if not even more, right? So the combinations are so vast that sadly I would, even if I started now, I don't know if I would finish in my lifetime. It's that sort of a thing. But also there is an interesting thing about when you read tarot intuitively, which is what I do. In those patterns, they will themselves be interpreted differently each time. So this is a fact that I love to share because some people have asked me if I would read, for example, this card the same way twice, and I never read this card the same way. I've noticed that if it comes alone, even then, I will always have a different aspect coming out. Sure, I know the specific keywords that for me are aligned with it, and I know the core archetype meanings and things like that. But I also am open to the fact that there could be more because we as species evolve. So these things evolve. Archetypes are a creation of our human mind. And thus, they will always evolve. like tarot cards are very connected to our subconscious. And if we are allowing ourselves to dive deeper and go further, we will understand so much, both about ourselves, but about collective consciousness, which is a concept that Jung has always talked about. But it also shows into other people's lives. Like there's so much. And that's why I really love tarot card readings, especially for other people, because they might relate to the same image of a card differently than I do. And they might then ask, for a specific symbol being explained, or maybe for, some other feeling that they notice in the card or something of sorts. What does it mean? Or how does it relate to their question or situation? So the patterns and the options that are available are very, very vast. And yes, I could say that, for example, if you had the Three of Cups, which is this card together, let's say, with the Empress, that will be a very strong feminine energy, because it's usually a lot of women portrayed in these cards. So I know that aspect would link them together. But does it mean that that's the only thing? No, there would be so much more, right? Because maybe the question would be about what does your masculine energy need? And then you see all the feminine cards. And then a different time, the question and those same cards come out could be, let's say, how should I dress for the event next week? Also feminine is an answer, but it even gives you visual options. So yes, this is what I mean by that. A quite long answer, but I felt like it needed to be explained. Okay. Thank you for the thumbs up. Yeah, if you feel like you need some more extra depth into some of these questions, let me know. So some more. I'm jumping over the ones that, somebody's not here. Next, let me see. Oh, the numbers here went mayhem. Sorry for that. Okay, Vignora. Oh, amazing. So I did prepare the Thoth Tarot card deck. This is what she's describing, that she uses Thoth Tarot, and it has been quite a journey. Oh, I bet. Yeah. The Book of Guidance, the little book that comes with it, she uses it to categorize the information in relation to the questions, and asks me, is it necessary to know the question? Oh, you have another book. Is it also by Aleister Crowley, the book that you have? So is it really necessary to know the question? Is it better if I lean all the possible meanings of the symbols within them? Ooh, beautiful questions, deep. Yes. So for me, one of the ways how I work is through having a question in a reading, because for me, it gives a sense of some sort of structure. Because in many ways, I see tarot cards as a very feminine tool. And what I mean by that is that it's quite open. There are so many possibilities, as I just mentioned. And for me, masculine is something that is very clear structure, which tarot also has. But if you're looking at the amount of meanings and the possibilities, this deck is going to look completely different than this one. And they're both classics and very put out previous century, not so far from each other. Each card is so different. Oh my gosh. By the way, this is also Three of Cups, two different versions, right? The same card, two very different feelings. This, of course, you can feel and see that it's much more, previous century, and this is a modern version of it. But the same card, the same archetype, the same message technically, right? But each artist is also giving a bit when they're creating something. So the messages evolve as we evolve. We know that some rights, especially women's rights, have changed so vastly. Okay, the book is called Keywords for the Crowley Tarot by, not Aleister Crowley himself. Good. But knowing that a book is guiding you is a beautiful thing. But at the same time, it is a bit like I mentioned in the presentation. It is giving you a set of ways how to do it, right? It is giving you a set of explanations, meanings, or practices. So yes, one of the main ways how to look at any tarot reading is to have specific questions. It can be that you have one question. It can be that you have a spread where there are multiple cards. You know that. So somewhat you are asking if you even need a question. To be honest, no. And there are definitely tarot readers out there, and it tends to be quite popular among the archetypal tarot reading community, that you will actually simply pull a card. And to be honest, there are card pulls that I also teach to people that don't necessarily involve a question. And one of those main exercises that basically anyone who's a bit longer in tarot knows, which is a card pull. And day card pull will be the case where you literally just pull out a card and it gives you information. So in a way, you have a theme day card, but at the same time, you didn't really ask a question. You didn't ask, how did my day go? Or what will happen today? Or how will tomorrow be? Or how was this day? You're just being open to the day card, right? But in the same sort of manner, you can also just pull a card simply to give you information with nothing added. That is always an option. And in some spreads, I also like to add what I call a shadow card, subconscious card, which is sort of that similar thing. It has a theme, as you can hear, but again, I like the structure. So I like to know what and why. But the main reason why I work with questions and structure is because I usually, especially when I work with somebody or even myself, I want to get somewhere. So those things help me to get there. But if you're just being open and you want to understand where your, for example, spiritual journey is, maybe you don't need a question for it, right? You're just open and you want to see. So yes. And then is it better to, if I lean all the possible meanings of the symbols within them? I would not say that I ever look at the card and try to find all the possible meanings. Because, again, the way I perceive tarot is that it has so many meanings and there will always be more. So I don't feel like I have to go there. I do remember that when I began, when I was, in my beginning journey, I was really trying to get the maximum out because I was learning. I was so eager. I was really like hungry for this thing, right? So of course I was giving so much, yes. But over time, I realized that sometimes the essence of the message that I need for myself or somebody else doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be everything. It can be a very concentrated thing as well. And sometimes it will be a bit bigger. It a little bit depends on the case, right? So even this part I do intuitively. So I really hope that this is helpful to you. Thank you. Okay. I think Patrice actually just joined us. Good. So we have the question. Nice. Let us know how you're doing, Patrice, in the chat. You can tell in which country you are at and how you're feeling today. Oh, your question is deep. How do you market yourself as a tarot reader? Well, if you follow me on my Instagram, my YouTube, you basically see how I do it. If you're talking about strategies and things, well, I mean, am I going to reveal everything to you? That's one. But the second is I actually do have education on communication and PR. So that's helping me a little bit. But in many ways, everybody actually chooses how to market themselves. And if you're looking, how can somebody else market themselves, right? Oh, nice, you're in Netherlands as well. Good. So how can somebody else market themselves? My approach and my answer would be to do it as close to yourself as possible. What I mean by that is in the presentation, which you sadly missed, but I can send you later the recording and you will see what I mean. There's a part of the intention, right? And the why will really, really help you to understand how to market yourself. When you're doing my Tarot Pro course, my mentorship, we do it together. I help you to determine your values, to understand what you actually want to do with this. Do you want to have tarot on its own, or you do want to maybe package it together with other things? For example, one of my past Tarot Pro course graduates, she was already a coach, and for her, she simply added tarot card reading as one of the other things that she would either do in a coaching session or maybe on the side. Sometimes she would create events, and her experience and what she would give is completely something else than I would do. So some things really go together quite well. Yes, thank you for being here. And I hope that you really got the right insights. And yeah, when it comes to marketing, everybody has to choose a strategy eventually. Some do it from the starting point, some others just try things. So depending how much you know about marketing will, also determine what you need to do. So in many ways, yeah, I definitely go into depth about this in the Tarot Pro mentorship, because also this is not a topic I can easily tell you what to do in one evening, or nor do I think it is possible. I think it's something that you discover together with somebody else who also understands what your interests are. And then you simply try things, and that either helps you or doesn't help you. And then you try something else. Like it's business, it's entrepreneurship, it's trying things, it's, understanding first of all why, because that why will determine what you do next. So yes. And there are definitely many options how a tarot reader can be. Somebody is going to just read tarot cards on YouTube all the time, every day, just give free readings and probably get some commission from YouTube for the people who are watching the videos, right? I, for example, don't do that. That was one of my main things that I chose at the very beginning, because I knew this is just not for me. This does not go with my values and the way I see tarot. So I rather teach tarot. I rather give very private, deep one-on-one sessions, and also like to, be together with other tarot readers, because I love community. I love sharing this because I can see how much it helped me. Good. Now we have answered these questions that I had pre-sent in. If I missed yours, please let me know. Maybe I just didn't add everything, but let me go in chat. I saw some questions were there already. Talking so much, need to drink a bit. Oh, very interesting question from Dinora. Can parents read the cards to their children? Is it age related? Well, this is a little bit interesting question when it comes to ethics. If you're talking to somebody like me who sees tarot cards as, an intuitive tool, something that can be, used for mindfulness, for self-growth, for something that is helpful, loving, caring, my intentions say yes, you can. But for somebody from a side, for example, who sees this as a tool that could be, for some people, they might see it as a religious tool. Although if you don't add religion to it, it's not. But you also can. There are definitely many Christians, many Hinduists, many other religions that actually use tarot. So it's not like you can't add it together, you can. But if you're looking about the age-related thing, it's probably, what you are doing with it. Like if you're telling them what to do, I don't find that ethical. But if you're trying to get to know them, if you're using it as a game that can be helpful for the child to understand his own emotions or her own emotions, I see it as a helpful tool. So it's probably how you do it. Yes. Probably that way. So thank you for the question. This is really a first for me. I like it. Okay, let me go further. There's an interesting comment. I am a confident tarot reader, also intuitive, but when is it wishful thinking? So when we start to work with our intuition, when we start to, like I like to say, build the intuition muscle, it takes time to, well, one, develop it, but also to trust it. But third, to understand when it really is our intuition and when it isn't. So it is a very, there is at first it really feels like you really can't tell it apart. But once you actually use it as a tool, at least for me, when I use it in tarot, I do notice some sort of a little shift when it's really my intuition, or when it is something that my mind or my emotions or something would really want, right? The wishful thinking part. So it is quite intriguing, because when I began tarot reading, I was going into the wishful thinking a lot. A lot. I'm not kidding. A lot. I use the same spread multiple times just to see different results. And I'm not kidding, but tarot cards can be very vicious and very persistent, and the same cards would fall out for this, and they would be like, "Nah, your wishful thinking is not gonna come true." You need to see the reality. So a part of being able to be really intuitive and not in the wishful thinking is actually allowing ourselves to be radically honest with ourselves, allowing ourselves to be uncomfortable. Because usually the wishful thinking comes in when we want something real, real bad. We're not there yet. We really want it. Oh my God. And the critical thinking part and honesty would tell us, okay, this and this and this is why you're not there. So if you, for example, use tarot to discover those parts why you're not there, it might help you to actually activate that intuition. But I do like to say this, especially to people who are beginning to use this as a tool for really deep self-reflection, is that don't go with the craziest, deepest topic you're the most emotional and focused on right now. Start with some simpler things. Start with things that you're interested in, but not like, oh my God, my heart is bursting out from this. Because if you go immediately to that burst out feeling, you are really going to go into the wishful thinking. And it's just natural. It's okay. But if you take your time to understand and build up this honesty in yourself, it will help you that eventually, over time, when you build it up, you understand, okay, for this topic, I can still see this and I can still be open. Another way how to make sure that you are not going into the wishful thinking too much is to actually leave some sort of spread or question or tarot pool or whatever out for a longer time. So the way I do tarot is I always also try to journal about it, especially if it's a very deep topic. Sometimes it's not like I will every time journal perfectly, but I will try to make sure that it's there. So if I journal, I can look back and see what I wrote. If I don't, you don't fully remember what you thought, right? So it's best if you journal. And if you do that, you leave the same cards out, you leave the same question spread, whatever, you have written it down. And you can look at it over time. And to be honest, wishful thinking mind is going to calm down over time. But that intuitive self is always there. So you sometimes just need to be a bit calmer in your nervous system to be able to receive the intuitive. When you're in a whole lot of stress, it's really hard to be intuitive. I must be honest. Of course, over time you can train it better, but it takes time. So I hope this helps you in this area. Reading some last questions, comments. If you have still some, you can ask them. We are also getting a bit late, but we do still have time. So, next question from Evelyn. Would you say that after one can read tarot confidently, can they offer their services, or would there be another step one would need to take? So for me, the confident is more for you. The other bit is, of course, where you live, the country. If how you need to set up your business and things like that. So it's not like everything is just about the tarot part. There's also like a business part. For example, me living in the Netherlands, we have quite an open system, and even when I like doing it on a hobby level, you can actually stay there for a quite long time. But in some other countries, maybe there are more rules about it if you, for example, ask money for it. So that's the very practical, tactical part of the world. But to say, when can you start to offer? Well, it is kind of up to you. Some people will actually never learn all these steps or do all these steps. Some will just immediately, let's say, buy a book and immediately give readings. That happens. And they will just recite. But they're definitely not being ethical, in my opinion. So it's not like you can't do it immediately. You can. But at the same time, for me, what helped me to feel good about what I'm doing is to be in line with those steps. And then make sure that I'm continuing to learn. That's maybe the step that I didn't add. But for me, like the 8th one would be that I always continue to learn, always continue to upgrade. I continue to practice tarot, and that teaches me a lot as well. So in many ways, it's how you feel ethically about it and what is your why reason. One of the reasons why I do things is because I want to help. I want to help women. I want to make sure that they're intuitive. And I know that tarot can do it because it has done it for me and my clients and my students. So this is where I'm coming from. And that helps me to understand, when can I give services to people, when I know that I can actually help them to get that intuitiveness out. If for you the why is different, maybe you need something else, another step, right? So it's a little bit there. But officially, you don't even need any certification. You can get one from me, but that doesn't mean that you have to. That's how it is. Okay. If you are reading for someone else, do you let them pick their own cards or pick for them? Would you say it matters? Ooh, I love this question. So when I'm reading tarot cards for other people, I do it both online and in real life. So depending on the person, some people actually want to touch the cards, but for me, it has been a minority. So if somebody really wants to like pick a card or something, I allow them, because in my personal boundaries, that's allowed. But I do know people who feel uncomfortable if somebody touches their cards because it's like their energy. Maybe they would offer for somebody to pick a card because there are card like mashing systems where that would be required. But to be honest, I teach all my students to be quite intuitive and understand their own preferences to how they want to do a card mash and how they want to lay it out and all those things. I mean, there are some tiny technicalities, but those you learn quite fast when you're reading tarot. And if you're looking at if one is needed over the other, I don't think so. I think it's more of a personal preference. So for some people, it might feel like they have more in control if they pick a card. But to be honest, when I was going for readings and if I got that option, I didn't feel like I was much more. It's more, I think, for those who are afraid that they could be tricked. I think that's when it comes out, that they want to be somewhat in control. But then I'm like, why are you even here for a reading? So it's kind of funny the way I created my tarot readings. No one is interested to pay so much money to then try to test me if I'm real or whatever. Once a person wanted me to read cards for them, almost like, and they were checking if I'm gonna be correct or not. They didn't want to tell me anything at first, and I was like, come on, this is not gonna work. I need a conversation. So, it depends on with whom you're in the room as well. So your boundaries and the other person's interests and needs. So it's a little bit of interesting communication, yes. Okay. Yes. I'm glad if I got to answer it well for you. Some people will tell you, oh, it's this way or that way, but that shows that they have a personal preference. That's how I see it. Yes, lovely meeting you as well. Oh, somebody told Dinyara that it was not allowed to give readings to kids. Wow. See, this is people really always have assumptions or their personal boundaries and then they put them on others. I don't like to do that. I like personal freedom, independence, and honesty. I simply don't think this is logical. Yeah, yeah, that's good that it resonates with you. Ah. By the way, one thing that I always try to tell to people, I don't see tarot as a therapy because I have so much respect for all sorts of therapies out there. I also go to therapy myself, but I do see why people will, even in reviews for my readings, will say that it's therapeutic because it clearly allows them to feel like themselves. It allows them to feel emotions. It allows them to understand their mental space. So it can be beneficial if you use it as a mindful tool. But to be honest, any mindful tool will also give you that, right? If you use it in a really open, self-reflecting way. So yes. Hmm. Oh, thank you for the kind words that I see around. Oh, that's so interesting that uh, some others were also not to touch tarot cards as kids. Interesting, interesting. See, this is how people sometimes build up power into something. And tarot cards seem to be seen as dangerous for those who think that they have power over them in somewhat way. One of those ways, as I mentioned, is if you are predicting something. I mean, how can you prove something wrong if somebody tells you that that's how it is? That's one. But another is some people just, like the way you see cards, some think it's a divine thing. I don't necessarily say that it's not, because I think we humans are divine, but it is something that we created. But we also are faulty, so it has the faults as well. So we really do have a lot of power into what we say in a tarot reading and how we interpret. So I understand that plays a big, big, big role. Okay, I've shared my part for the questions that I noticed, and I hope that whatever you wanted to receive, you did. And yeah, as I mentioned, I do tarot course for those who want to become a tarot reader for other people. Of course, in line with the way I was explaining things here with the steps and all. But at the same time, if, for example, you know that you want to read tarot cards more for yourself and you don't feel like you need to read for others, I also love to just get together with my tarot reading community that we call Tarot Reading Club, and there we literally are a few women who share our experiences and go on what we call the Fool's Journey, which is a tarot journey, which goes into a bit more depth with each card. But yeah, for all these offers that I have, I always would want to have a bit more chat with you to understand if we are aligned and if that is something that you need at this moment. But I'm very grateful that you were here. It's a bit earlier than the shown time because we are a bit less people. As you saw, I did not answer every question, but that would be perhaps a bit much. But I'm very grateful that you were here, and I hope this gave you both inspiration and some answers to the burning questions. Mm, yes. Oh, thank you all. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Have a lovely evening. And oh, I'm glad that it was good. I felt very good myself as well. Okay. Have a nice evening. And I will hopefully see you around. Bye bye.